When it comes to buying a new TV, there appears to be three things that matter most to consumers: picture quality, screen size, and price. Now, most TVs that offer exceptional picture quality in truly large sizes, well, they tend to be a little bit more expensive. Whereas TVs that have good picture quality at more affordable prices, well, they typically are smaller. So is it possible to have all three? Picture quality, screen size, and affordable price? Well, that's the question we're going to answer today. So settle in, hit that like button, and subscribe as we review the Hisense H65G Series 4K Smart TV. The Hisense H65G is an LED backlit 4K smart TV aimed at the masses. While a little light on features, it likely has enough to please most folks day to day in order to be relevant. Now, the Hisense is not going to set a spec-crazed TV goer's heart ablaze, but it will appeal to those looking for a big screen experience, at least up to 85 inches. Ours is the 75-inch version, and like I said, it is a true 4K LED backlit display. It has full array backlighting, though it lacks local dimming. It has a reported refresh rate of 60 Hz and is Dolby Vision and HDR10 compatible. It relies on the Android TV operating system. This gives it access to the Google App Store for streaming apps such as Netflix, Hulu, and Disney+. Of course, this means that it has support for Google Assistant as well as Alexa, and it supports Wi-Fi as well as Bluetooth. It has three HDMI 2.0 inputs, one of which supports ARC, though sadly there is no support for eARC on this television. This means that you will not be able to enjoy Dolby Atmos or DTS:X soundtracks via an eARC connection. Because of its lack of HDMI 2.1 inputs, those of you rocking next-gen consoles may not be able to max them out in terms of their frame rates and resolution, as the Hisense is limited to 4K 60. But I contend that for regular viewing, 4K 60 is more than enough. But bringing it back to games, there is a dedicated game mode. It's in the picture profile, but not much else. And that Spartan theme carries over into the Hisense design. It's a good enough looking TV physically, but it's made of plastics and the cheaper kind, but not so cheap as to make you think that it won't survive the rigors of daily use. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like the Yamaha NS F150 that we reviewed earlier this week, in that it looks well enough hung on your wall and from a distance. Out of the box, the Hisense ships in its energy-saving mode, and if you're looking for accuracy, I would skip this profile. But a lot of TVs ship in an energy-saving or eco mode, and most, just like the Hisense, don't fare very well in terms of accuracy. Now, the energy-saving mode has a decidedly blue bias in both its grayscale and color. This means that you can expect to see a cooler image in this picture profile. Also, brightness is not that great in its energy-saving mode, hovering at around 240 nits. After switching picture modes, I found that Standard, Vivid, and Sports all fared, well, subpar. Switching things to Theater Day or Theater Night mode improves things dramatically, getting one closer to the standard. Now, in Theater Day mode, I measured the grayscale as having a margin of error or delta E of 4.9, and I measured the color to have a delta E of 3.4. And if this seems like gibberish to you, what you need to understand is that a delta E of less than 3 starts to enter into the territory of being calibrated from the factory. Now, with this TV, color is more accurate than grayscale, though both are respectable in its Theater Day or Theater Night mode. The good news is you can calibrate the Hisense H65G, and if you do, you will get marginally better results. After calibration of the Theater Day mode, I got the grayscale to a delta E of 1.4, and I got the color to a delta E of 1.3. Not the best measurements I've ever achieved, but very good given this television's budget nature. That being said, I don't think that I would actually spring for calibration of the Hisense for two important reasons. One, calibration is going to add to the cost of this already somewhat affordable television. And two, Theater Day and Theater Night modes are close enough to calibrated that I think that the vast majority of viewers aren't really going to notice a difference. Real-world content captured in 4K on Discovery Plus, or movies such as Birds of Prey or Dr. Dolittle on HBO Max look fantastic. Skin tones look natural and organic. Colors simply pop, but not in that artificial way and with no real bias towards any one hue. And texture in detail rendering is fantastic given the budget nature of this display. But brightness isn't stellar. The Hisense ranges between 220 and 300 nits of total brightness depending on the picture profile you choose and what settings you opt for in its dynamic contrast. Now, I like the theater day and theater night modes, and I disable dynamic contrast, so doing that I was treated to a light output of between 230 to 240 nits. Sadly, in HDR, things don't get that much better in terms of brightness. It's not like this TV has another gear where it suddenly just doubles its light output. You've been warned. As a result, there is some minor crush in the blacks with HDR and non-HDR content, and there does appear to be a little bit of loss of contrast in the highlights as well, though unless you really scrutinize the image, I doubt that most people are going to notice. But for example, in brightly lit scenes, there may be a lack of separation between, say, the clouds and the surrounding atmosphere. Likewise, for darker scenes like those found in The Matrix, you may not have as much separation as you may have seen through costlier TVs. Motion is actually pretty good. Now, I disable all motion enhancement modes, and even with them off, I found the Hisense motion rendering to be very natural, though there may be some ghosting visible when viewing test patterns, but I doubt you're going to see that in everyday viewing. Blooming is also largely a non-issue, in part because this TV does not have local dimming. Additionally, edge artifacts are also largely a non-issue, though I do recommend that you keep the sharpness value to 10 or lower to avoid introducing any artifacts. Personally, I found this TV plenty sharp with the sharpness set to 0. Now, HD to 4K upscaling looks great, even with streaming content, though arguably 4K content is going to look best. Now, this isn't the best HDR I've ever seen, but I'm mostly reacting to the Hisense's lack of light output and not its actual image fidelity. If you watch HDR content in a darkened room, I think you're going to find the Hisense passable. All in all, I am fairly impressed with the Hisense's picture quality. I don't even mind its slightly lower light output, as it is enough to produce a pleasing image in our ambient lit room. In truly bright scenarios, I might wish for 100 or 200 more nits, but for the most part, it does the job. What isn't as impressive is panel uniformity. It's pretty bad, both in terms of light uniformity as well as quality of light. First, there is very noticeable vignetting, as the backlights do not appear to go edge to edge. How do I know that? Well, because when viewing a 100% white pattern, you can literally see the backlights through the screen, and they occupy the center 70% or so section of the television. And this creates a shadow box-like vignette that is very noticeable in brightly lit scenes. That and the quality of the light itself is not consistent and can drift in color from white to yellow to tan. And these really are the two biggest complaints that I have about the Hisense, partially because I just watch a lot of home shows and they tend to be very high key in their lighting. And this shows off the panel uniformity issues quite regularly. Now, if you don't watch this type of programming, then perhaps you're going to have a better go with the Hisense. The only other caveat that I think is worth mentioning is the fact that the internal speakers are pretty bad. Thankfully, because this TV is on the more affordable side, you may have some money left over to add a soundbar or a pair of inexpensive powered speakers like what you're seeing here. All that said, you can get similar or better TVs from pretty much every manufacturer on the market right now, so the Hisense is not without its competition, but be prepared to spend just a little bit more to get there. For example, for an extra $100 or $200, you could get the Samsung Crystal Series TVs or the TCL 4 Series, all of which have similar specs to that of the Hisense. If you need additional features such as HDMI 2.1, faster refresh rate, or eARC compatibility, know that you are going to have to spend more. But if you spend more, you open yourself up to options like TCL's 5 Series, the Samsung Q70T, and Sony's X800H Series, to name a few, all of which are arguably better than the H65G from Hisense. The H65G from Hisense is a solid, middle-of-the-road 4K smart TV. It's not the best, but it is far from the worst. Obviously, there are costlier TVs with better brightness, more features, more connectivity, all of those things. But if you are working on an incredibly tight budget and want a bigger screen, the Hisense checks 2 of the 3 boxes we spoke about at the beginning of this video while providing you with a better than average picture quality. So that's it. That is my review of the Hisense H65G. What did you think?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I think it's a decent TV.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a fan of Hisense. I think that they create some really good TVs in an affordable like price point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're wanting something big, you know, or if you've never had anything bigger than say like a 55 or 65 inch TV, and you really want something larger.
Mm-hmm.
This can get you there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I will admit I'm looking at it right now and you see the darkness in the corners of the white frame of the artwork that we have on the TV. And yeah, I watched you measure it. And even when setting it up, like when it was going through its sort of initial phase of setting the TV up, like when it has a fully white screen, oh my gosh, you know, you dirty. Really, it is bad, and it really kind of shows you what's, if you know, especially if you know nothing about the mechanisms of a TV, you're really going to see what, you know, how the sausage is made, so to speak, when those white screens come up.
Yeah.
But I would, you know, for the most part, it's not an issue.
In everyday viewing, you don't notice it as much.
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't. So I don't know that. You know, look, if I had a finite amount of money, and the thing that was the most important to me was having something big, then this TV would absolutely satisfy me.
Sure.
You know, so I don't have any issues with it. The other thing, and I pointed this out last night, was I was sitting in the Eames chair. The Eames chair. It's not a real chair. It's not a. I mean, it's a real. It's a real chair. It's not a real Eames. But when I was sitting there, looking up from that angle, the off-axis viewing was actually pretty impressive. I have seen way more expensive TVs look like utter crap from that angle.
Yeah.
And so when I sat there, which I don't rarely do, I was like, whoa, this looks pretty good from over here.
Yeah.
And that's not something you can say about a lot of TVs.
And I noticed that too when I was filming it for the B-roll, my extreme off-axis, immediately I was like, whoa. Normally Hisense, in my opinion, is not that great off-axis. Even our 9G in the bedroom, if you get off to the side, you get some of that posterization in the skin. And if you remember the R6, which was the same year as this TV, I think. They both came out last year. Anyway, that was horrific off-axis. That was one of those TVs where when we were done with that review, I said, look, if you're on a tight budget and you're straight on and you don't need the brightness, I think this is better than the R6 because it doesn't rely on Roku. It's got the Android. It's got the cool Android for me. And the off-axis is so much better.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Thank God it doesn't have Roku, because then I would have... I don't think I could get behind this one. But not that you can't fix the Roku issue with something like a...
NVIDIA Shield.
NVIDIA or Google Chromecast or whatever. But no, I think it's... I've enjoyed watching it. I mean... it's perfectly fine, and now you have to decide for yourself if that is enough for you, or what is your priority, you know, when it comes to a TV. One more thing I want to say. We watched. I don't think it's going to appear in the B-roll, but we did watch Netflix 6 Underground, which is just for those of you who are interested. That is a movie that we will play some portion of for pretty much every TV that comes in the house, or even like home theater speakers and stuff, because of the dynamic range, both in sound and picture. It's really good. It's a good test. I thought this TV did really well at handling a lot of those, what I would consider to be like blown highlights.
Yeah.
This TV is kind of, or not this TV, sorry. That particular movie is really all over the place in terms of exposure.
Yeah.
So it handled it really well, like a champ. And I was like, hey, for $800, roughly
$750,
something like that, for 75 inches, that's pretty good. I mean, I just think it's great that we're finally kind of starting to get to a point where these bigger screens are becoming more accessible in terms of price for people.
Yeah.
You have to start somewhere.
I think, look, if you're someone that is shopping for something that's the latest and greatest that you are hoping is an investment for years to come, then I wouldn't buy this TV, because obviously there are specs about it that are woefully out of date today.
I mean, well, honestly, I would argue that a TV is a terrible investment.
Well, yes.
I personally would never look at a TV or a gaming console as Chip Gaines said on the last Fixer Upper episode, vinyl is final. Like, you can't consider I don't think you can consider a TV in the same way, because technology is changing all the time.
Right.
And you're probably going to end up replacing your TV like you will a game console.
Right.
Every few years. I don't, but
yeah, I mean, but there are people out there that are like, I'm going to go for the latest LG or Sony OLED with 2.1 and everything that I can get, because my Pioneer Kuro lasted me 10 years. So if I And I totally understand that logic. I do. I totally get that logic. And if I was going to look at a television for a longer term investment, I would go max that I could right now. But I'd also get an 8K display rather than a 4K one. But if you're someone that's like, dude, I watch 30, 40 minutes of the news a day. I watch 2 or 3 of my favorite shows, the occasional movie on a Friday or Saturday night on Netflix. I think you start here. Personally, I really do, especially if you're like, I'm never going to calibrate. I don't even know what calibration means. I don't care. As long as people don't look like Oompa Loompas or jaundice, that's all that matters to me. You can make a really strong case for this television, in my opinion. I think you totally can. And to be fair, and maybe this is my own oopsies, but when we requested this TV, because we've actually had it for a minute, either it wasn't known to us that there was an 85, or we requested the 85 and they sent us the 75.
I honestly don't remember this thing. We've had this thing for I'm embarrassed
we've had it
to
for
say
months.
For a while.
Yeah.
It's just we've had, there's just been other things that have become a priority, but I don't know. Like, if any of you watched our Vizio
challenge, home theater challenge.
Yeah, the video that featured the Vizio P Series Quantum X. Look, like, that's the first time me personally I've ever had a TV that big. It's 85 inches, the one from that video, and it's really hard to go back. Once you've had that big screen experience, going back, I mean, there's no way I could go back to 65. Which
first world problems.
I know, first world problems.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get flamed in the comments for that one, but,
It's a bestseller for a reason. It is. And price is one of those reasons, but I also think that it gives the everyday person what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And I think the longer we've been at home, the more stuff like this, like a TV, becomes important to people, because there's really not a lot else to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I think it's a solid TV. It's got its issues, but doesn't everything.
All right. Good. Okay. Well, that is our review of the Hisense H65G 4K Smart TV. What did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, my question of the day for you is this: what is the most important factor to you when buying a new TV? Is it price? Is it picture quality? Or is it screen size? Let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Christy left for you down below, know that that is a great way that you have shown your support for this channel and the work that we do here, and both Christy and I thank you very much. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that's it. So remember, the only person who has to like the sight or sound of your system is you. So happy listening, happy watching. Thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next video. Bye.